Hello and welcome to another video. This one was suggested to me by someone in the comments. I do not remember your name, but I'll put your comment up here so that way people can see it. This seems to be a video that includes Shane Issac as well as a few other people. I'm not entirely sure who the person right here is. Didn't do any research on him necessarily, although I might do so before the video is finished, and if I do, well, then I will share that information with you. Now the other the other three rather, Dean is someone from General Motors. I closed the webpage. Yes, here he is. Dean, this is who Dean is. He's the managing director at Cadillac, located in China. Now these other two people, this one right here and this one right here, Robert and Connie, they are a part of a firm that is known as R/GA. It seems to be a consultancy firm of some kind for finances. And then, of course, we have good old Shane Issac here. Now, as my primary expertise lies in the realm of 3D, in terms of 3D art, assets, and digital illustration and the like, this video will primarily focus on things that pertain to that, or things that Shane says just as a general commentary. There might be a few other things that I weigh in on, but we will see. Essentially, I'm going to kind of start and stop the video and go with whichever one I think I should be responding to or making a response to for all of you. So I hope you do enjoy. Let us get into it, and oh boy, do we have one that starts off spicy.
Shane, let me turn to you. You've been in this a long time, creating a whole new metaverse world. I know some people may think that you can create a world in 7 days, but I know you've been at it a long time.
Here's a common misconception. No one thinks that he can do it in 7 days, nor does anyone think anyone can just create a world in 7 days. At least not a game world. What was being put on display was the challenge that Shane himself issued, which was a 7-day challenge. The whole stipulation of 7 days comes from Shane, no one else.
Your challenge now, though, is to give us the 90-second version of really of kind of what Earth 2 is and what inspired you to build it.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Robert, and thanks for inviting me along to this panel. And hello, everybody. So yeah, I mean, we're about 17 months into building Earth 2, and as far as metaverses go, I think these are really early days. There are obviously other platforms who are in the metaverse space that took really years to put together, and their vision is probably not quite as grand or on such a grand scale as Earth 2. So in the scheme of things, we're still in the very early parts of developing our metaverse, I'd say. And
so just as a note on scale inside of video games, because this is something that comes up quite commonly whenever Earth 2 or really any video game world is discussed and how big it might be. As mentioned in previous videos, there are video game worlds whose the surface, if mathematically compared, is way larger than Earth 2. Minecraft alone is several orders of magnitude larger than Earth is itself in real life. I don't remember the exact number off my head, but it's quite large. Then you have things like No Man's Sky, which has a theoretically infinitely large play area, game world, as it is. When you think of a game world, the thing you have to think of is generally when people say the game world, they mean the entirety of the game itself, not just one area or one level or one aspect of the game itself. So Earth 2, since the entire play area is Earth, effectively, that is your game world. That's it. And that game world is not anywhere near the largest game world ever created. And even if it was, even if a game world was defined as a single level or a single zone or a single planet, Minecraft still has it beat. So this isn't the most ambitious title in the world. It's not. It's nowhere close. There are games out there that have had far longer and far more controversial development cycles than Earth 2. And those games were far more ambitious with what they were actually trying to do. Now, the whole idea of the metaverse in itself, to me, is appalling. See The Matrix or Ready Player One for reasons as to why. And if you need it spelled out, here's why. The whole point of both The Matrix and Ready Player One was to get out of the metaverse. Let that sink in.
We are in this for the long run, so it's something that we are committed to now and over a number of years into the future. I think the 90-second rundown of what Earth 2 is in itself is a little bit of a tall order. I mean, Earth 2 means so many different things to so many different people, and it's difficult to summarize it and articulating it without, I guess, misrepresenting many of those views. But in a nutshell, Earth 2 is a geolocational metaverse, meaning there is a direct correlation between real-world locations and the digital representation of those locations inside of Earth 2. Hence, where you're standing right now in the world has a digital representation inside of Earth 2, and that digital representation will grow and expand over time as we roll out future technology. I launched the MVP of Earth 2 in November 2020, and ironically, I actually launched it as a side project. It wasn't a project that I was fully focused on at the time, but people quickly fell in love with the concept, and we shortly after, I think it was around December, we went into hypergrowth with a range of statistics that would probably challenge almost any startup in history. It was a very, very nice time to look back on now, but it wasn't very enjoyable for me at that time. Just literally dying trying to keep up with it all. So what we did, we released a digital grid or layer of land that spread across the planet Earth, and we split that into what we advertised as 10 by 10 meter plots or 100 meter square plots. However, the actual size of those plots are larger, which the Earth 2 players will find out pretty soon as we kind of cover that detail on E2 version 1, which is our 3D planet that we're building to release. But more or less, until now, like, people have been able to buy, own, trade, sell, and lightly customize their land. And they've done that at scales. Like, we've had sales in between players of land that they've purchased into the tens of millions of dollars. So
I'm not entirely sure on the accuracy of tens of millions of dollars. I would need to see some actual evidence of this. However, it is important to keep in mind that even if this is true, which I highly doubt, the people that he considers players include the investors who have no intention of playing the game. Anyone who has bought into Earth 2 at all is a player. So a lot of those sales, even if they're true, are from investors, not the actual players.
This.
But feel free to prove me wrong. If you can produce the receipts and the evidence to show that these transactions took place between two people who intend on playing Earth 2, show me it. And I'll make a whole video showing it off and admitting that I was wrong. But I'm not.
And this is all in Fiat. We launched as a Fiat company, and we're kind of dedicated to moving to Web3. But this is all being based on actual Fiat currency, based on US dollars. I think on actual Fiat currency, based on US dollars.
Now, there he says that it's based on fiat currency, aka the US dollar. Now, the fiat currency, in a broad sense, and I'm reading this directly from Google, in a broad sense, is all kinds of money that are made legal tender by a government decree or fiat. It's essentially a type of currency that is not backed by any commodity, such as gold or silver, and typically declared by a decree from the government to be legal tender. So, what he's saying, if we go back and listen to it again.
We launched as a Fiat company, and we're kind of dedicated to moving to Web3, but this is all being based on actual fiat currency, based on US dollars.
So he says that they are a fiat company. Okay. Now, you might ask, what is a fiat company? The answer to that is nothing. There's no such thing as a fiat company. And to be based off of a fiat currency means you're based off of a currency that isn't legal tender. Meaning it's based off of a currency that's illegal and has no value. That's what he just said. Now, he tried to clarify it by saying based off of the US dollar, because he probably realized pretty quickly what he just said was that it was based off of illegal currency. And he was trying to clarify that to be like, oh no, it's the US dollar. No. A fiat company doesn't exist. And this entire thing is based off fake currency. Illegal currency.
I think with your next question, I think the best way for me to answer what inspired me to build Earth 2 will probably be just to cover what a metaverse is, or what the metaverse is or should actually be. And I think that's probably...
Okay. He just jumped all over the place there. Let's just go back and listen to all that again. That was funny.
Best way for me to answer what inspired me to build Earth 2.
So it's what inspired me to build Earth 2.
Will probably be just to cover what a metaverse is, or
what a metaverse is.
What the metaverse is.
What the metaverse
is or should actually.
Or what it should actually be. He asked one question, and Shane's splitting it into 4 different potential questions, so he can nitpick it and choose exactly what he wants to say. However, since he wants to break it down so much, fine. I'm going to explain to you exactly what a metaverse is. A metaverse is a network of 3D virtual worlds, plural, focused on social connection. In futurism and science fiction, it is often described as a hypothetical iteration of the internet as a single universal virtual world that is facilitated by the use of virtual reality and augmented reality headsets. That is what a metaverse is a connection of virtual worlds, plural, not just one. And it's not done for monetary gain or anything like that. Its focus is social interaction. Let's continue.
And I think that's probably something beneficial for me to cover in this panel, just in general, before moving forward. It may become like a conversational point or something we can refer back to. In my opinion, there's 10 different things that I think are critical to defining a metaverse or the metaverse. But I know we're on a tight schedule. I know I'm probably going over already. But
then shut up and just say it.
But I'll just cover like 5 of them very quickly. So for me, number one, the metaverse has to be big. And I'm talking about the metaverse, not a metaverse. There are probably going to be strings of metaverses that come off the centralized metaverse. But for the main metaverse, it has to be big. It has to be something that you can like zoom out on and look down upon. And it's expansive. It's huge. You can go to all these different locations.
It's called a world map and fast travel.
Inside of the metaverse and explore them. It's not something where you feel like you're in a shoebox and you can only see a very distinct kind of close area around you. That, to me, that can be part of a metaverse, but it's not.
The small box is called a mini map.
Not actually the metaverse. So I think the metaverse, in what all of we should envision, should be like big at scale. The second thing,
relatively speaking, all game worlds are big. All virtual worlds, relatively speaking, are big. What defines how big a world feels is the scale of the player character and the scale of the environments around them. A good example, a very simple example, is the original Super Mario Brothers. Okay, they have a world where all of the blocks seem to just become enormous, or you become very, very tiny. Which is it? It's hard to say, because everything else grows so large, but you seem to stay the same. Or maybe you shrink and everything else is staying the same. It's hard to say. But the point is, the scale of the environment surrounding Mario makes it feel much, much, much bigger, much more expansive. And if you do that in a more modern video game, like an open world game, like, I don't know, Elden Ring or Breath of the Wild or any open world game nowadays, they feel massive and expansive because they are in their own context. If you put me inside of Skyrim and set the player scale to be 6,000% bigger, but left everything else the exact same, you would be able to traverse the world way faster, and everything would seem like an ant by comparison. And therefore, the world would seem very, 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 very tiny. You see what I'm saying? The whole point of scale, or the whole thing behind scale, is that there is a direct correlation between the player character and the scale of the environment the player character is in.
I think the metaverse, as much as possible, needs to feel real, as though it truly exists, and or the closest it can come to existing. And for me,
that's all like virtual reality, augmented reality, all of this.
Those first 2 reasons are what kind of kicked me off into releasing Earth 2 or inventing Earth 2. The way that Earth 2 feels as though it exists is because of exactly that. It's based on real-world geolocations that we relate to. Therefore, now and also into the future, as we release more and more products, you'll be able to be in Earth 1, you'll be able to even access Earth 2 and see what's kind of happening around you. And therefore, it creates this real sense of existence for the metaverse. It's more like an alternate reality as it is compared to like a server that operates deep down in the dungeons of AWS or wherever.
And yet, deep down in the dungeons of AWS or whatever, will be the server containing Earth 2.
Wherever it may be. The third thing is I think the metaverse has to have a long-term sustainable economy, and that economy needs to have the ability to reward those who are participating in it. And
he's describing a video game. What he's doing right now is describing a video game. In order to make a video game that players are going to want to continue to play and actually care about the economy of, you have to have currency and things in there that are rewarding and engaging. He's literally just describing what makes a video game a video game. He's not talking about anything innovative or creative or new. This is literally things that everyone already knows. Now, I will preface this by saying the other individuals in this video, the other 4 up there, might not necessarily know that. So that might be why he's explaining it. However, being that I am responding to this is how I'm going to treat this. Everyone who is a gamer, who plays games, which it seems to be his target demographic, even though it's not, everyone who plays games knows that there needs to be an in-game economy. Otherwise, there's no currency and there's nothing to buy, nothing to upgrade. There's not really much of a game.
And setting up that economy correctly long-term means that it will support the longevity of the metaverse in itself, but it will also be an amazing platform for brands to bring their presence into. Number 4, it does need to be decentralized or as decentralized as possible, providing irrefutable ownership on key digital assets to its inhabitants.
So here's how code works, because he's literally just saying these are the things that are inside of a video game. It doesn't need to be decentralized, and here's why. Everything inside of it is going to be a string of digits, a string of ones and zeros. All of it is going to be digital. Every single bit of it. You know how a video game, like an MMO or whatever, when you log in, your inventory is still there, and all of your armor, your character, everything you did is all still there. You want to know why? All of it's still in your inventory and not like someone else's inventory or on someone else's account. It's because all of that is stored on the server. The ownership of who owns what is all stored on the server. There's no need to make it decentralized, because if it needed to be decentralized, all online video games would have to be decentralized, and therefore no online video games would ever exist, because governments aren't going to allow you to have a uncontrolled, unregulated currency floating about that has no actual backing in any tangible way.
This includes things like DAOs, minting of digital assets on the platform, decentralized utility tokens. As Robert, you pointed out a bit earlier, yes, Earth 2 is currently centralized. We launched as a centralized platform, but for a metaverse to be a true metaverse, I do think it needs to be decentralized.
Core.
And we are committed to that, to kind of moving that out. I also think that the metaverse will be the metaverse in the future will be much too big, powerful, important to be run alone by one corporation. So I think that's something very important to take into consideration. Number 5, the metaverse.
So what he's saying there is that a whole bunch of corporations will all have to work together and all have their own servers in order to run one game, essentially, because of how big it's going to be. One corporation would easily hold this many people. All it has to do is have the server capacity.
Needs to support creativity. This also...
I'm going to go back here a little bit, but also, do you understand how hard it is to get more than like 50 people to all agree on one idea? Because if you've ever been in a raid, like an early WoW raid, you would know that's impossible. It's almost impossible to actually coordinate that, like, just 50 people to all doing the same, to working towards the same goal. You really think you're going to be able to convince multiple corporations to host your server and not have their own say on what cut they get?
In the future will be much too big, powerful, important to be run alone by one corporation.
Most companies don't give a shit about the metaverse. Also, sorry to burst your bubble. The metaverse isn't going to be like the next big thing. VR chat already exists.
So I think that's something very important to take into consideration. Number 5, the metaverse needs to support creativity. This also means that it
Core.
never stops expanding, and it never...
VR chat, Gary's mod, Minecraft. Oh god, what other sandboxed MMOs can I think of? Like,
stops adding new things over time. It doesn't become stagnant because it supports creativity, not only from players or individuals, but...
Skyrim. Look how much... Skyrim's been released, what, like 20 times now over the last 60,000 billion years? Like...
But also businesses who can use those tools to create a presence inside of it. For Earth 2, we're aiming for photorealistic type of end-game graphics, but I know a lot of the others are, they're aiming on different levels, but it should have that creativity or the ability to create. And the platform should reward those who make those creations for what others need, want, or derive happiness from.
Second Life, EVE Online, again, Core, all of these already exist and they're doing the exact same thing that Earth 2 is trying to do. Like, this isn't new. All he's doing is, like, putting the name Metaverse on it to make it sound new and fantastical when it's not. EVE Online, Core, Second Life. All three of these do exactly what Earth 2 is trying to do, but better. And they've been doing it for a lot longer.
So, there's a lot of other things, like it should be all-inclusive, it should have its own social media platform, it should be...
No one's going to use your social media platform. Facebook and Twitter already exist.
Able to exceed the boundaries of reality as we know it today. It should be competitive. I think it should have game elements. It should feel busy. It should be in 3D. So the big thing about the metaverse is moving from 2D to 3D environment.
Going from 2D to 3D is not new. It's not innovative. It's been done since the fucking 90s. We've been doing 3D since the fucking 90s, dude. We've had motion capture, true motion capture, since the 90s. Like,
Today, it should be competitive. I think it should...
Competitive with what? If the metaverse is going to be this all-encompassing thing that just can do everything, what is it going to be competitive against? Itself? You're going to have competitions with the players? You're not giving any actual information. You're just spouting a bunch of fucking words that mean nothing.
It should have game elements. It
should have game elements, so it's a fucking game. You're making a game. Just stop trying to call it a metaverse. Just call it a fucking game. It doesn't have to be... You don't have to try and make it seem like this new, exciting, innovative thing. Like, just the fact that you're making an Earth-sized something. An Earth-sized game is impressive. Having all of the real-world aspects in it is impressive. That all on its own merits is impressive. Just call it a game. Just say you're making a game. Stop with the metaverse crap. Say it's going to have VR elements. You're going to be able to use VR if you want. You don't have to. Make it a big AAA virtual reality game that you can opt to not use virtual reality with. Like, that concept, a huge, honestly worked on, big AAA game like that, an Earth-sized place to roam around with, places that you're familiar with, being able to go and explore places, like being able to go to fucking Egypt when I can't afford to, being able to see the pyramids, go inside the pyramids, that would be amazing. But none of that's going to happen.
feel busy. It should be...
It should feel busy, so every video game ever, any kind of virtual simulation, things need to feel busy or they're bland and featureless and no one will care about it. Saying that it needs to feel busy doesn't add anything to the conversation. It's just more words that you're using to make yourself sound smart.
In 3D, so the big thing about the metaverse is moving from 2D to 3D environments and experiences at scale. So there's a lot of other things it should be, but that in a nutshell is what we should be thinking of.
And again, going from 2D to 3D is nothing new. Referring to, 2D on your computer screen, and it's like, I've simulated 3D. No, it's actual 3D. Shut the fuck up.
I think from a metaverse perspective. Sorry, I know.
Because, again, VR chat. You literally put on a virtual reality headset and can look around and move your body and see the world and interact with the world. These things already exist, and they have for years.
I ran over time, so.
And it's a tall order to create all of that at once, right? Which is what you're trying to do.
It's not.
It's a very tall order.
It's not a tall order at all. It's not a tall order at all. VR chat has been out for 5 years. Gary's mod has been out since 2006. It's not a tall order.
But what was good there is you kind of went into my next question, which is like what do kind of people that are operating in Earth 2 or in other platforms in the metaverse kind of really value? And if we're talking a lot about brand participation, you referenced that there. So my question is, from your perspective, for instance, is brands coming in, you say it'd be good, they need to kind of reward participants, support creativity and that kind of thing. When they come in and they look at kind of it's quite often the obvious thing to do is to try to say, how can I take my products and services and right away kind of replicate them in the metaverse? But if you're kind of looking at it from that lens, how can they, how should they be treating them maybe differently on a platform like Earth 2 or others?
Yeah, I don't know if they would in particular like treat them differently. I think a lot of brands who are obviously operating in what we call Earth 1, so Earth 2 we look at a
No one calls it Earth 1. It's the Earth where we live, where everyone lives. It's called reality. That's what we call it, Shane. It's called reality.
It's like a separate metaverse, but
It's also nothing like a separate metaverse. It's fucking reality. Maybe you should have a reality check. Maybe that's what needs to happen.
Inside of Earth 1, I think essentially the first thing will be is to kind of stick to your guns in what you're creating. You've got a brand, you've got awareness, and it's going to be about moving that awareness into these metaverse platforms. And there are massive opportunities, as Dean already pointed out, with like Nike and Louis Vuitton and all these kind of platforms moving in to create digital assets in the metaverse or the Web3 field. It's just about doing what they do, but it's going to be digital. It's going to be 3D. They're going to have to focus on building out teams of 3D model designers as opposed to teams of people, or factories creating clothes or.
They're going to need teams of 3D designers. They already have them. They already exist. They already do 3D assets because they have commercials. They also have games that have their stuff in them.
Or other type of brand items. This is just inevitable. And I think to answer your question more directly, what do metaverse?
This just proves that Shane doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
In particular value in their environments, I think it's exactly this. It's exactly what they value in the real world. I mean, you look behind me here, I've got little things that I collect and I like myself. It's the same inside. It will be the same inside the metaverse. It's the same inside Central.
Since he wants to point it out, you can probably hear, maybe you can't. The room he's in is extremely echoey. It has like almost nothing in it. It's probably some large white featureless room that he chose specifically for this, so he could have some figurines and whatnot set up behind him so he looks like a gamer.
Games at the moment, like
if he was in an actual office space, it wouldn't be echoey like that because there'd be carpet and padding everywhere. There'd be other people. There would be other pieces of equipment, even in his personal office.
Like Fortnite or League of Legends. Myself, it's the same inside. It will be the same inside the metaverse. It's the same. You do metaverse in particular. value in their environments, I think it's exactly this. It's exactly what they value in the real world. I mean, you look behind me here, I've got little things that I collect and I like myself. It's the same inside. It will be the same inside the metaverse. It's the same inside centralized games at the moment, like Fortnite or League of Legends, or all of these platforms. They have the ability to purchase perks that new designs for their avatar or these additional digital assets. It's the same inside of the metaverse. People are going to want to collect things. They're going to want rarity. They're going to want things.
Nothing's going to be rare, though. You said earlier that the metaverse should be able to. You should be given creativity. If I'm allowed to just create whatever I want, I'm just going to create the things that I want. There's going to be no scarcity, and therefore everything will be worthless. You either accept the fact that everything is worthless, or you restrict what we can create, thereby restricting creativity, and under your own definition, meaning it's not a metaverse. You've backed yourself into a corner here, Shane. It's not looking good.
Things that beautify themselves or their avatar or their environment. And I think it is important for them to actually earn that as opposed to, or purchase or earn that as opposed to just being given it too freely. So it does actually.
Let's listen to it again.
Important for them to actually earn that as opposed to, or purchase or earn.
You want to know why he just did that double back there and put so much more emphasis on purchase? Because he's talking to people who could potentially invest in his project. This guy, her, him, Dean over there, yeah. They're all people that could potentially buy into his product. So they can't just be earning all of the things, because if they earn them, then their businesses don't make money because no one's purchasing it.
That as opposed to just being given it too freely. So it does actually.
As opposed to just be given it freely. Again, listen to it back. Listen to it back. Just pay attention to what Shane himself says.
Themselves or their avatar or their environment. And I think it is important for them to actually earn that as opposed to, or purchase or earn that as opposed to just being given it too freely. So it does actually have purpose inside of the platform itself. It's something that we're focusing on in Earth 2, is that we'd like to create intrinsic value into everything that enters Earth 2. So there is actually a process to building things in Earth 2 as opposed to just creating the 3D assets themselves. There is actually an economy where you do need to mine resources. You're going to be able to process those resources into building blocks by eco-sim building. So there are going to be players who actually focus on doing this, much like in the real world where we have factories and manufacturers that provide things for us to build real world objects.
He's talking to investors. He's speaking corporate talk. Everything he says here has absolutely nothing to do with the game. Air quotes. All of these people, not a single one of them are a player. Not Thomas, not Connie, not Robert, not Dean. None of them are interested in playing whatever this thing is. They don't give a fuck. They need to make money for their companies. And Connie and Robert here are here as essentially consultants to be like to tell the other two whether or not it's a smart investment. So he's trying to work really hard to make it seem like they can make a lot of money inside of this thing that he's making. He's not doing a good job. Not my opinion.
It's interesting, and I want to bring maybe Thomas and Connie in here as well. Um, Obviously you must get questions too from brands kind of looking to come into the metaverse, and there's all kinds of questions about whether people actually you know they might like the same things, but there are questions being asked about whether people actually behave differently as avatars or want to be sort of someone else sometimes in the metaverse. And so if marketers are kind of looking at how to approach audiences, what's your advice on how to treat them, whether differently or the same? Thomas, maybe I'll toss that to you.
So before they say anything at all, I'm going to interject here. So when you're dealing with a game, okay, people, when they play a game, they are playing the game for the game. That's it. They want to play the game. They don't want to be themselves. The vast majority of people who play games do it as an escape from reality. Not to go in and do more tedious labor work for almost nothing. Okay, when the actual players of Earth 2 get home, they're not going to want to then go to another job inside of the metaverse. They're going to want to sit down and play a game. Something they can sit back and relax with. Not something that's going to stress them out more. Now, there are people who like playing eco-sims. EVE Online is still going strong to this day. It's a great example of it. As is Core, as a very, very modern example, and Second Life as a kind of in the middle. The issue you run into here is when you try to manipulate the player. Because we want to be someone different, we're not going to necessarily act the exact same way in Earth 2 as we would real life, because we want to be someone different. We are putting on a persona, an avatar, a facade, if you will. So for a brand, if this were to become a thing, what a brand would want to do is focus on what the avatar version of them wants in the game and focus on what the real person wants in reality. That's how they should do it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the main thing to keep in mind that there are still real people behind the avatars. Kind of what Shane mentioned earlier. Avatars do provide a way for people to express themselves differently, and perhaps these expressed behaviors might actually come to life a little differently that you might behave in the real world. However, behind these avatars are the people whose needs and wants and desires are going to be very likely quite similar than they are in the real world. So what we are seeing a lot actually from brands that have entered the different decentralized or centralized metaverses is that people tend to actually support very similar brands in the metaverse than they do in the real world. So if you are a fan of, I'm using the cliche example, I'm aware of that, but if you are a big fan of Nike and you like wearing Nike sneakers in the real world, it's a very, very high likelihood that your avatar is going to be also wearing a limited edition Nike or something like that. And that value creation that comes to the brands and creations then come in the way that people express themselves in there.
So yeah, he said exactly what I said, what he should have said, which was you treat the avatar like how the avatar wants to act like. There's a high likelihood that they'll want to wear Nike, meaning they'll probably buy Nike. But there's the equal chance that they won't want to wear Nike because they already own Nike. Also, there's the issue of spending, I don't know, hundreds of dollars on a virtual shirt that can at any point just be taken away.
So I would say keeping in mind that real people behind the avatars have similar behaviors is quite key for brands to keep in mind.
Similar, not the same.
We have seen some examples where people may behave as different in the metaverse. Sometimes it's not. There have been a few examples where it hasn't been great. There have been some concerns around creating a safe, inclusive, equitable metaverse environment. So, Connie, when do brands come to you with kind of those concerns, and how I'll get others to weigh in on this as well, but how large a concern is that, and how front and center is it when kind of creating a new avenue for them to talk to people?
Yeah, I think brands do have these kind of concerns, but talking from the China point of view, I think a lot of the platforms and brand operators here are still going in a highly experimental steps into the metaverse. So a lot of time they will think about the brand purpose and what's the role of the brand before this kind of security or intellectual property kind of question yet. But at the same time, this will be definitely something that we keep in mind when we are recommending.
Sorry about that. My headset died. Let's get back into it.
A lot of time they will think about the brand purpose and what's the role of the brand before this kind of security or intellectual property kind of question yet.
Yeah. So the reason why is because if your brand doesn't have a reason to be in there, there's no reason to go into it, because that means you aren't going to make any money. Because you have no reason to be there. There's no demand for your product. And as gaming companies like Ubisoft, Bethesda, and many, many more are finding out very quickly, things like the metaverse and NFTs, gamers don't really actually give a fuck about. And they actually despise them pretty hard.
But at the same time, this will be definitely something that we keep in mind when we are recommending brand to proceed in metaverse.
Do any of you have other thoughts on that in terms of kind of, I know Shane, you were talking about making sure it's kind of everyone there's kind of mass participation. Part of that is making sure things are equitable and inclusive. What do you have any comments around that?
Well, yeah, I mean, inclusivity is very important. I probably have a couple of comments around this, I guess. I think, like, from a gamer's perspective, this is like a long running joke inside gaming communities since forever.
Choose your next words wisely, Shane Issac.
So I think for the average person, this might be something a little bit new to them, where you have, either an attractive avatar that may or may not represent a male or a female.
And y'all really seriously, honestly think that he is a gamer? Let's go back and listen to that one more time.
I think for the average person, this might be something a little bit new to them, where you have, either an attractive avatar that may or may not represent a male or a female, but obviously, it may be a female, but there's actually a male playing it, or vice versa.
I think I can say pretty ubiquitously that nobody in the entire civilized world that has access to the internet would be surprised that someone might play an avatar that doesn't necessarily represent who they are gender-wise. This not only... So this is a few points of... There's a few bad points here on Shane. One, this shows that Shane not only doesn't know what a gamer is. Two, it shows that, once again, he's not a gamer. Three, it shows very clearly how uneducated, I'll say, he is, as far as gender and gender identity is concerned in the world nowadays. Nowadays, for those unaware, while back in the 90s, it might have been nigh unheard of for someone to claim that they feel like they are sexually the opposite of their biological gender. Nowadays, it's not so uncommon. Most of the people, or most people in the world, probably know at least a couple of people who feel this way. And they probably don't even realize it. So no, Shane, not a single fucking person in the world is surprised by this.
You know, it may be a female, but there's actually a male playing it, or vice versa. And this has been like a long-running joke inside the gaming community for.
It's also literally not a joke. It's literally true. It's literally not a joke. This is something that people have done since the inception of video games. It's the whole fucking point of a video game.
For some time, but as the public start to dabble in the metaverse, this is going to be something that people probably catch on to quicker, but they don't yet understand or get it. I do think, like, something I'll point out probably might be something interesting to consider. I do think, like, moving inside of the metaverse and using Web3 technology, I think everybody inside of there, doesn't matter how you're represented as your avatar, you're going to have like a digital footprint. And if I had my way, and I think this is the general way that Web3 is heading, is that digital footprint you would have some control over, which is a little bit different to what we can say for kind of traditional types of social media platforms who, you know, they trace everything you do and create these kind of hidden reports about everything about you. I would think moving into Web3, this is something that you can hopefully control a little bit more yourself and customize it, but you will have.
So, here's a funny thing about what he just said. Two issues. One, you're still on the internet. Two, net neutrality died a long time ago. Everything you do on the internet, unless you're careful about it, is tracked. Everything, Shane. Even on your precious Web3. And the whole darknet, all that bullshit, literally everything on the internet is tracked.
Have this digital footprint, and I think that's going to introduce.
By the way, the digital footprint that he's talking about, how a digital footprint, this is what a digital footprint is. A unique set of traceable digital activities, actions, contributions, and communications manifested on the internet or digital devices. So let's go back once again and listen to what he just fucking said.
Types of social media platforms who, you know, the heading is you're going to have like a digital footprint. And if I had my way, and I think this is the general way that Web3 is heading, is that digital footprint you would have some control over, which is a little bit different to what we can say for kind of traditional types of social media platforms who, you know, they trace everything you do and create these kind of hidden reports about everything about you. I would think moving into Web3, this is something that you.
Also, by the way, if this thing is going to have actual brands like Nike, Chrysler, and Cadillac and whatnot in it, guess what? They're going to be fucking tracing what you fucking do, so that way they can send you goddamn advertisements and sell you specific products. It's going to be just as fucking predatory, if not more so, because it's going to be in your fucking face. Literally.
You can hopefully control a little bit more yourself and customize it, but you will have this digital footprint. And I think that's going to introduce some really interesting scenarios for brands, because
No, it's not. No, it's not. Let's listen to what he has to say about why it's going to be interesting.
depending on how accurate that digital footprint is, for example, you may have a situation where one avatar is walking up to this 3D digital experience and another avatar is walking up to the same experience. There is actually this opportunity for the brand, and this is just something I've thought about myself personally. There's actually an opportunity for the brand to identify the customer and even portray two different environments to that customer to attract them. Like, it may be a store that sells beer and wine. For one avatar, they might be advertising the beer application, and the other might be advertising wine, but they're both heading to the same stall.
Literally what I just said. You're still going to be tracked. They're going to sell you fucking advertisements based off of what you do with your digital footprint. The traceable digital footprint. And what's worse is they're going to have all of that directly because you fucking gave it to them when you signed up for their game. This entire meeting is nothing but corporate speak for how they're going to fucking milk you and steal all your goddamn money. That's all it is. This right here is literally showing you what they're going to do to your wallets. How they're going to monopolize on you playing their project. They're literally going to shove ads into your face and then warp the world around you such that it is no longer the representation of Earth and instead the representation of what brands want you to see. You won't even see the actual world.
Store. I think there would be some pretty comedic situations there as well.
No, they wouldn't be comedic for anyone but the fucking corporates. Like you, Shane, and all these other motherfuckers in here that don't actually understand what the fuck you're trying to do.
When you have two different looking
Although, granted, neither fucking do you.
avatars heading to the same store for different looking reasons. You're looking at one avatar who they're seeing something completely different. This avatar's seeing different, and so that may be that.
As you can tell, none of them are laughing because it's not a comedic joke. They don't fucking care about what happens to two players in the game when they are walking towards the same building. They want to know how they can fucking monopolize on this shit. How they can make money.
That probably will be comical in a sense. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a long-term thing to build this a safe metaverse, a safe platform. And it is kind of...
Also, if it's decentralized, there's no way to make it safe. There's no stable currency. Everything is just up in the air and has absolutely no backing. It's literally worse than just bartering 2 chickens for a fucking cow. Because at least with the chickens, I'm getting something I can fucking eat for dinner.
Common knowledge that we are Earth2. We are going to release our own social media platform, and
which no one will use.
It's a little bit too early to say, but I do hope that our platform can also be decentralized in many ways. That it's more the community participating in the various spaces of that social media platform, as opposed to one central body running it.
Yeah. A lot of brands have the question of kind of worry maybe about kind of selecting the right platform now. Obviously, whether it's Earth2 or Sandbox or Decentraland, etc. If they're considering time and putting time and effort into it, where do I begin? Connie, do you get that a lot? And kind of what's the situation like in China?
Definitely. In China, there's no established or inclusive meta platform like the Decentraland or Sandbox yet. So I think platform and brand operators are quite cautious about their every move. Tech giants like Baidu, Tencent are introducing their own originated metaverse, but they're not totally open or designed for all users yet. More of like a showcase of their capability and edge in certain territories. For example, Tencent wants to own entertainment and NetEase want to own corporate events. So I think the questions for brands would be, how do I leverage the nature and specialties of these different platforms to match my brand purpose, to optimize the experience for my target, and where and how to reach out to the early consumer group to start my virtual community. And the more important thing is how to strike the balance between brand control / intention versus the dominance of the platforms.
So as you can tell, there's a very, very good example. How very clear and concise Connie was with her response, while Shane here takes like 5 minutes to answer one question. Connie took like 90 seconds.
Dean, I want to ask you, since you're the brand here too, what are the things that go through your mind when you're kind of then considering everything platform kind of going in it, and or any risks that we're talking about? What's kind of tends to be front and center?
Sure, Robert. I think that's a great question. I did want to respond to your earlier one about inclusion. I think we as brands need to take the responsibility to make sure that all of our environments are safe and inclusive, and especially in the metaverse where there's a little bit of anonymity. And I love how Shane said people may portray themselves differently. But from a brand standpoint, that's so important because sometimes we make assumptions by the little we know of someone. But watching them in the metaverse and how they portray themselves may be different, but it may be an inner desire that's actually more important for us. As brands, we want to connect on an emotional level. And if they're free to express that true self, we should be very willing and open and inclusive to respond to that. So we're really excited about the potential, everything that Shane just mentioned. In terms of where we should be, I'll take the easy answer and say we're going to follow our customers in a lot of ways and see what they make popular. Obviously, as Connie said, we're a little concerned about investing in any one, over-investing in any one platform currently because it may not be here tomorrow. We will look for platforms and owners like Shane and Earth2 that have a bigger vision that I think will deliver what people are looking for and have a higher potential of success. We'd be very interested in platforms like that. We're going to shy away from the fly-by-nights that are in it for a quick buck, that are obviously, won't have the longevity. So.
I guess that's.
I think, Robert, also one of the things that we have the wrong.
So real quick, I just want to touch on what Dean said there. So Dean, you can tell, once again, is very, very practiced at this. He knows exactly what he needs to say in order to get his point across. He doesn't sit there and dilly-dally on the small little details and splitting questions and answers into multiple different subsets. He just says, this is what we're doing. This is the answer. He doesn't say anything else. There he said that he's going to take the easy answer and just say that they're going to follow their customers, which is a smart play on his part. Because if he didn't say that, this is out there on the internet now. Everyone would know that that's what he said. And unlike video game developers who do not, or corporations who do not seem to understand their market, these people do. Dean understands what his market is, and as a result is going to make sure that his wording is such that it pleases them, specifically his targets. He doesn't care about anyone else. If you aren't willing to buy a Cadillac if there's no reason for that he could use to convince you to buy a Cadillac, he doesn't give a fuck about you. Your opinion and your thoughts don't fucking matter to him. Not at all. If you are not there to help promote or to help prop up the business and to help support the business and give the business money, he does not give a fuck about you. Because that's what the brand needs to do. He is in a position where he needs to make the brand money. If he's not making the brand money, he's failing to do his job.
Run the risk of now, from a brand's perspective, is running towards the shiny thing. So I think an important distinction is not to necessarily work on distinctive metaverse strategies, for example, for your brand, but actually flip it around and figure out how the Web3 and metaverse actually delivers for your existing strategy already, whether it is a brand strategy or a commercial strategy, and what parts of those commercial objectives can be supported by the metaverse or any Web3 technologies. I think that's a very, very important distinction now.
Now, see, Shane, I hope that Shane is paying attention during all of this, because this is very, very important information for his company and his business. If he wants to make this successful and he wants to get brands in on this, he needs to think about all of these things, and he needs to take all of these things into consideration. He has to do that. Otherwise, Earth 2, regardless of how good the game is, if his entire business strategy is getting other brands in on his project to be able to use that as what props it up and helps fund it, if he can't get the brands in on it, it doesn't matter what the game is or what the project is, it's going to fail. So I really hope he's paying attention to this if he really wants his project to succeed.
We're going to invest in something completely separate and distinctive, and that may not actually build towards our overall objectives.
So that's another kind of advantage of kind of being thoughtful and aligning it with your brand strategy. What about kind of the benefits of acting now? Some brands may be weighing kind of risk of kind of being kind of some of the the first to move in. At this stage, I think though we're seeing enough brands participate that there's maybe no longer first mover advantage. But is there some kind of advantage to kind of acting now as and kind of just ensuring that you're involved?
No.
Thomas, do you want to take that one as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's the obvious awareness and perception, benefits of being first. There tends to be a disproportionate amount of press space, being spent on the first mover. So that's kind of one sort of low-hanging fruit, I guess. But again, you have to do that thoughtfully, and it has to build towards your strategy. But also, I think what the most important thing is, the earlier you get in with a thoughtful strategy, the quicker you can start getting the learnings that work for your brand specifically. I think, as with any innovation, as with any new things, you're never going to get it 100% right. You just won't. But the more you try different things, as long as those things are inclusive, equitable, safe, thoughtful, and don't in any way harm the brand, the faster you experiment, the faster you actually find your own way in that space. And I'm not just talking about awareness and experiences, but there have been brands that have been able to create loyalty programs, communities, new ways of providing customer service, and even commercial models within the space. And I think you can only create those models if you're in, and if you really truly understand how customers and people interact with your brand in these spaces.
Basically, what he was talking about there are things like the Xbox Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, the Nintendo eShop, Steam, things like that. That's what he was talking about there.
Going to get to some of the audience questions and some of the questions that were sent in advance, just shortly. But Connie was talking about already kind of some of the differences in China. I just wanted to ask about the rest of Asia Pacific. So many different markets that may be different places, and both brands and developers are maybe approaching the metaverse differently. Thomas, what are you seeing in terms of the different approaches, I guess, kind of across Asia Pacific that you're seeing when it comes to the metaverse?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We're actually seeing a very similar trend that with any new technologies that have evolved in Asia Pacific. For whatever reason, if you look at communication platforms, so different chat applications and things like that, there are certain markets where WhatsApp is very prominent. There are certain markets that have kind of inherently gone with a platform like Line, for example. And, it just comes back to a lot of the cultural nuances of what is made available through those platforms. And the same thing is happening with these individual metaverse-like experiences. So if we look at markets like Korea, Zepeto has become a very, very prominent platform there. And if you look at markets like Singapore, they tend to gravitate more towards the decentralized sandboxes of the world. So I think it does come down to looking at it market by market and looking at which platforms are popular. However, I actually think more than market by market, what's driving scale at the moment is that there are a lot of platforms out there that are pretty deep in Web3. You do have to have a level of technical savviness to be able to have your crypto wallets and your MetaMasks and all that kind of thing to play things like Decentraland or participate in them and own digital assets. Whereas platforms that are more app-based like Zepito or Roblox that essentially leverage on the fiat currency trend tend to have a higher following at the moment. And those actually might be good places to start for brands because the barrier to entry for both brands and customers alike might be a little lower at the moment. So while there will be cultural nuances and decisions made by market, I actually think the accessibility of these platforms is the main driver of early scale at the moment.
Great. Okay, let me get some of these questions. Just a reminder to everyone that you can put questions in the chat, and we'll get to some of those. But we also have a few of the advanced questions that we can get to that we had submitted as well, by people that were going to attend. One of them sounds kind of very practical if you're talking about kind of using VR. How do we host events with VR experience when few people have headsets? Do we rent, or is not everyone has a headset at home? So does that limit, I guess, the audience and availability? Connie or Thomas, do you want to take that one?
I really wish that he had called on Shane here, because I'm interested to see what Shane has to say about this.
Yeah, I can take that one. There have been some really creative ways that brands have solved this already. One of my favorite examples is from the New York Times, and they created this VR experience for people. And what they essentially did was send these cardboard VR things to all of their subscribers. It didn't cost them a lot, but together with your New York Times, you got a cardboard version of a VR set that you could then use an app on your phone to do. So that's one really creative way of scaling a VR experience, where perhaps it's not exactly the same experience as you would get with a high-end,
Cardboard. Oh. They sent them cardboard. Oh.
A VR headset. But these sort of versions will enable people to experience that world through their mobile phones and through the cardboard headsets. I mean, the obvious things of renting and providing them for people and things are there. But I would always say when you're creating an immersive VR experience, you have to also consider how that experience would work outside of the high-end headsets world, and what's the scaled version of that experience for
Cardboard.
people to enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Another question we had was, how is the metaverse beneficial to the brand besides awareness and connection building?
Awareness. It doesn't help your awareness. Which is why it said besides that, because everyone knows who like Nike and Adidas and all that shit is.
Of this we've talked about, I guess, already in terms of kind of ability to for instance, there is the ability to sell products and so on. But maybe Dean, since you're again the brand here, if you're looking kind of like beyond awareness and kind of building connection, what do you see the main benefits for you?
Sure. It's a great question. And let's not discount the benefits of awareness and connection. These are very important things for brands. But first, I'll have to confess that, I mean...
Connections are. Awareness isn't like... They try to make awareness out to be like this super huge thing. It's actually not that big of a deal. Everyone's already aware of Nike and Adidas and things like that. Like, these brands are not creating anything new by saying, oh, you need to have awareness. And no, you don't. Everyone already knows who you are. Shut up.
May not be aware of the full potential of the metaverse just yet. I'm still learning as well. But the little that I actually do know of the metaverse, it has the potential to really fundamentally transform our business. Just the idea of changing the concept of ownership and value with the NFTs and the blockchains, evolving the concept of community and socialization and personal expression, with the DAOs and the decentralization, extremely exciting. and just enhancing the role that we play.
Now, to clarify, the only reason that it seems extremely exciting to him is because, again, his role is to make his company money, and all Sean has done is talk about how much money they can make. He hasn't actually talked about how he intends on ensuring that they can get that money at all, because this is all supposed to be decentralized, and it's all based off of illegal money. And for some reason, Shane thinks that this is just perfectly fine.
In terms of brands and products and people's lives, I think that is, we haven't even begun to tap into that yet. So, like everyone else, I'm really excited to see where the metaverse can take us, and just know it'll be an exciting place.
Now, just as an aside, it's not Dean's fault that he's being tricked here. Dean probably doesn't play games. He probably doesn't really understand what they are. He doesn't really have time to play games. He's a very busy man. He's fucking super high up in the Cadillac and all that. Like, these other people here, everyone except for, well, even including Shane Issac, everyone here, they don't have time to play games. They're too busy with their actual jobs. Shane doesn't play games because he's not a gamer. He just wants to make the claim that he is one, so that way people will buy his game and believe him, and he's not a gamer. Dean's just been fed a whole load of crap by Shane, and he is just believing it all because he doesn't know. And he admitted it himself. Also, not a good look if your brand, if the brand you're looking for is unsure of what your product is. Just saying.
Shane, maybe you can address this one. We have
Finally.
a question on how critical the interoperability of virtual assets is from one platform to another, for instance. And
so, I spelled it wrong. This is what it is. Basically what he just said. Transferring assets from one thing to another. You can't. It's just not. It's not going to work. Because, let's say you make a Thanos skin in the metaverse. And that Thanos skin looks exactly like the one in Fortnite. And then you take it over to Fortnite. You really think they're going to let you just use that skin without paying them?
and are there challenges and are there solutions that you see when, say, there are different developers with different interests, different companies involved trying to make this happen, but getting, I guess, kind of different metaverse platforms to speak to one another, to allow people to transfer virtual assets over. How difficult is that, and how do you see it working out?
It's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult. Oh boy.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it is something that I think most people outside of the developer world really don't understand, especially with the way that NFTs have been rolled out over the past year or so. I mean, NFTs are, I don't think a lot of the NFTs that have been rolled out are going to have a large amount of operability inside of any given metaverse right now. A lot of people don't understand that to create that foundation for a 3D game or a metaverse or whatever you're building, there are different rules for different technology and different kind of engines that are delivering different models and different platforms in themselves. So interoperability is something we're not going to have true interoperability for quite some time until either the hardware technology significantly catches up or metaverses come together with a common consensus of this is how we're going to build our models, and they're all going to be interoperable over every platform. And I don't see either of those kind of happening in the near future. This is one reason, like in Earth 2's example, why I didn't kind of follow with the whole NFT hype train with handing out NFTs that don't have any purpose or operability inside of the platform. Like for land itself, we're going to have purpose to that in the future inside of Earth 2. When we roll out our NFTs, I want them to be something that you can actually feel and use inside of.
Let's hear it again, everybody. Let's hear it again.
Itself, we're going to have purpose to that in the future inside of Earth 2. When we roll out our NFTs, we're going to have purpose to that in the future inside of Earth 2. When we roll out our NFTs, we're going to have purpose to that in the future inside of Earth 2. When we roll out our NFTs.
Gamers around the world have unanimously stated they don't want NFTs. They hate them. They despise them. They do nothing but destroy the planet because all they are JPEGs that you can't do anything with. He wants to put NFTs into his game, and you still want to support him.
I want them to be something that you can actually feel and use inside of Earth 2, as opposed to something
you can feel. Here's the issue with that. In order for you to be able to feel something, there has to be pressure put against your skin, your physical skin, my hand, right? You have to have pressure against it. That's how we feel. That's how the human body works. If there's no pressure against it, you're not feeling anything. Because there's no pressure. There's nothing pushing. So there's nothing to feel. In order for us to feel a virtual object, we would have to wear a full body suit the entire time we play the game. And then you would also have to come up with some kind of code or technology that knows exactly the size and shape and scope and exactly how you are holding each and every single object and how much each object actually weighs and how that would feel in relation to the human body. Basically, you have to make Ready Player One. Ready Player One's whole plot was to get out of the metaverse.
Something that might just sit on your wall. That's something I think that you feel and use inside of Earth 2, as opposed to something that might just sit on your wall.
You mean like all those figurines that you have in the background, Shane? Things that just sit on your wall?
That's something I think that the interoperability on the scale that you guys are envisaging is really a long way away. And just one other very quick point, Dean and Thomas made some really important points about jumping into any metaverse.
It just goes on and on and on and on and on.
Too quickly. I think it's way too early. And I'll just share a very short story that we had in our experience during hypergrowth on Earth 2. We're partnered with a company called Mapbox, who I'm sure you're all very well aware of.
Interesting. So he's not lying. For once.
And we ran a test to our community or to our players, people accessing Earth 2, on who would want to, which businesses out there would want to advertise on Earth 2. And we still have a database
Hear
of
that
over
again.
10,000 to our community or to our players, people accessing Earth 2, on who would want to, which businesses out there would want to advertise on Earth 2. And
Did you hear that? Did you catch that? Let's play it back one more time.
during hypergrowth on
Let's
Earth 2,
hear it all.
we're partnered with a company called Mapbox, who I'm sure you're all very well aware of, and we ran a test to our community or to our players, people accessing Earth 2, on who would want to, which businesses out there would want to advertise on Earth 2. And we still have a database of over 10,000 people wanting to advertise on Earth 2, but we had amazing response, but we realized it was way, way too early for us to dive in and make a mistake in facilitating advertising that didn't make sense or didn't properly, accurately represent what advertising should be inside.
You see, so you notice how he's just repeating essentially all the information that was spieled out over the last 20 minutes of this video, where Dean and Thomas and Connie were all saying exactly this. And now he's like, oh yeah, no, we didn't want to do any of that either. We're on the exact same boat as you. When that wasn't the question.
Out of the metaverse. So we still have that database, but we realize that it is way too early to jump into, even ourselves, to jump into anything like that. And
yet you're looking for brand deals with fucking Cadillac right here, right fucking now.
I think.
But it's too early for him to be doing any of that.
Even over the next couple of months, we'll be releasing some vlogs showing buildings, and we will actually show some advertisements or billboards on those buildings to give an impression of what advertising might look like inside of Earth 2. But I think a lot of these platforms are way outside of being able to, to commit to anything just yet.
Oh, well, since he's going to mention advertising, just plastered it right in front of your face. Cyberpunk 2077. Already doing it. Massive game world.
No, that's really interesting, and it kind of informs the next question too. By the way, we're getting oodles of live questions, so I'm seeing them come in. I'm trying to even combine, some of them that are coming through here. But if interoperability is kind of an issue, a lot of brands obviously want to market and to have a relationship with customers throughout the entire consumer journey. So what's the metaverse's role there if brands are looking at that? Thomas or Connie, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, because if the brands can't be taken across games, then what's the point in it?
Maybe on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I would go back to my previous.
Which, by the way, as another quick aside, if I'm noticing that he was doing that with just repeating information that they had already said and trying to be like, oh yeah, I'm on your side. If I'm noticing that, I guarantee you they are.
Previous response actually around what role particular metaverse platforms or the individual, what I would call metaverse-like platforms, if we use the Shane's kind of terminology around if there can only be one interoperable metaverse. We're quite far away from that at the moment. But when we look at these individual metaverse-like experiences, for every brand, the entry points and the parts in the customer journey that those platforms play will be very, very different, and not that dissimilar to the Web 2 strategies. Some people sell through marketplaces, some people sell through their own websites. The same thing if we're creating experiences in the real world, some create them inside of their stores, some rent space elsewhere to create them. And I think from a customer journey perspective, it's no different. Do you buy land for your brand to have some kind of a brand space inside of Decentraland? That works with certain brands really well, and that can actually become a really critical part of their customer journey. For Nike, for example, Nike Land inside of Roblox has avatar customer service and sales representatives. What does that do? That creates jobs, that creates new opportunities to engage, it creates all kinds of things, but that might not work for every brand, for example. So I think think carefully about how these individual platforms will play to your overall strategy will be the key.
Yeah, the role of brands in the metaverse world would be completely changed, and the way they manage consumer
All right, sorry about that.
journey will also be altered, like from storytelling to story making, where metaverse has really put power on people's hands to co-create the brand together, and direct to customer versus to avatar. The way we understand the consumer insight, the process will become way more complex than before. And like live events versus virtual events, the time and space to consumer engage with brands will be infinite possibilities now. So yeah, it will be a huge challenge and also consideration for how brands manage the consumer journey from in the metaverse world.
I'm combining a bunch of questions here too, but there's some that are asking, what kinds of brands would be out of place in the metaverse, and others are asking about healthcare brands, and we had one even more specifically about luxury skincare brands, and it's really interesting because you don't think of products for your body in the metaverse where your body isn't present, right? But I guess you could say that your body's not in TV either, right? And that kind of thing. But do you have any? Have you seen any?
I can tell you right now, it won't matter. The brands like skincare and whatnot don't exist in video games because your player model is set in stone. Like damage that might be sustained or might show through can be removed by just healing the character or resetting the graphics on the character. There is no reason to have them because your character can look like anything you want it to look like. If you want it to look like fucking Scarlett Johansson, you can do that. There are certain brands that just have no place in this kind of environment.
Examples in, I guess, kind of the healthcare or ideas around kind of what, say, if you were...
And by that I mean no brands, because in the metaverse you're supposed to have free creativity, which means you can create anything, which means brands have no reason to be there because people can just create the brands.
If you were a cosmetic or health brand, what you could do.
Yeah, there are a lot of exciting things happening already. For example, like Gucci and NARS have joined this recent Decentraland Meta Fashion Week with a few other brands to launch the Metaverse initiative. And many brands have already actively collaborated with virtual influencer, male and female, to drive conversation and conversion on social and e-commerce.
They haven't actually done that from the metaverse. For NFTs, yes, but NFTs are not the metaverse.
I think another interesting angle would be...
Also, NFTs are garbage, but...
to see how sensorial experience are reshaped with metaverse and with technology. For example, like through integrating physical sense in meta space to deepen the immersions, how five sense transformed across like how you touch to see or taste to hear. I think these are a few interesting areas that luxury skincare brand can think about, like
how you touch to see. And what was the other one? Sorry.
Metaverse and with technology. For example, like through integrating physical sense in meta space to deepen the immersions, how five sense transformed across like how you touch to see or taste to hear.
So I understand what she's saying here, but she's saying it very poorly. You can't add taste to a video game. It's nothing but code. You can't add scent either.
I think these are a few interesting areas that luxury skincare brand can think about, like how to reshape the sensory experience is something that will be super interesting.
The only way you can deepen immersion with virtual reality is through a suit like in Ready Player One. But those kind of suits do not exist. So, and good luck getting them too.
I realize we're just about out of time. Maybe I'll go to this question, which is just about kind of what I guess would be the biggest protocol or software or hardware that you think will really advance the metaverse and maybe bring it into reality sooner, or maybe even just influence it.
Please give it to Isaac.
I don't know if Shane, you have a thought on this, or anyone. Is there sort of a missing piece to the puzzle that's like waiting to drop that will?
Please, Shane, say something.
Accelerate.
I really want to hear what he has to say.
I guess everybody might
Wonderful.
have something very quickly to say about that, but if I just jump in, I think it is obviously just a progression of technology, and from Earth 2's perspective, I realize that the long-term goals of Earth 2 are going to become realized over time. It's not something that's going to happen next year or in the next few years to the level that we want it to occur. But there is...
That's good. Speaking from a game design standpoint, that is good. Expecting to see a lot of high-quality results very, very quickly is unreasonable when you're thinking about creating a game, regardless of the size of it. All games go through like a birthing stage. They're going to have hiccups. They're going to have things that set you back. There's going to be a lot of difficulties to overcome. The larger the project, the bigger the scale, the more hurdles you're going to have to deal with. So I'm glad that he's taken this approach to it. Given the project that he wants to do, I'm glad he's taken the approach of let's take it slow and try to make measured, calculated steps, because that's what he is going to need to do. If only he did the same with the words that he chose to speak.
There is the possibility to do it in steps, and that's what we're doing here. We're kind of being visionaries in looking into the future and realizing that there is going to be, as the hardware and other technology catches up, I mean, you only have to look at NVIDIA. The tech that they're building is just absolutely amazing. There's lots of different companies around the world building different tech that is going to lead us, whether it's haptic suits or VR goggle sets, whatever it may be. It's all going to lead us into the metaverse. So the
Would you like to know who would be able to afford one of these kind of things? Investors, not gamers.
The vision that Earth 2 has is that what we're trying to create is that visual platform, the software platform for it, and that will gradually expand over time as technology catches up. So from our perspective, it's a visionary thing. We want to build the platform, the foundation that people are going to be able to centralize and interconnect on inside of the metaverse.
You remember, he said that this is going to be a decentralized platform. It's going to be decentralized.
Foundation that people are going to be able to centralize and interconnect on. Build the platform, the foundation that people are going to be able to centralize and interconnect on. Build the platform, the foundation that people are going to be able to centralize and interconnect on. Build the platform, the foundation that people are going to be able to centralize and interconnect on.
Platform that people are going to be able to centralize. Thought it was supposed to be decentralized.
Inside of the metaverse from a visual perspective, and we'll of course be partnering with or using technology that becomes available over the next couple of years and beyond.
Great. I would get everyone else's thoughts, but we have hit the end of the hour here, so that's unfortunately all the time we had. We
also see how he just took up all of their remaining time, 4 minutes, saying, "Oh yeah, no, we're just gonna rely on the technology that's gonna come," which he's already said, and made it so that no one else could speak.
Could literally go on for about 3 hours with all the great questions that are coming in. So, thanks to everyone for watching, and thanks for the questions that you sent in your participation.
All right, so well, there you guys have it. I don't entirely know what to make of this, other than that Shane really just doesn't know what he's saying. A lot of what he was saying was just kind of corporate jargon, corporate speak, trying to make sure that his investors and the brand that he was trying to get to come on with him, Dean over there, Mr. Cadillac, he was trying to get the brand to join in. He's not talking to players. He's talking to the people who's actually going to fund his project. Because, sorry to burst your bubbles, gamers don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to just throw around. Big corporations do. You don't matter, ultimately. You're there to make him money, and that's all he actually cares about. There's a lot of good information in this that I genuinely hope that Shane takes away from this. If he wants this to succeed, he's gonna have to do a pretty drastic pivot in the opposite direction, and it's not looking good for him. I can tell you that much. But that's the DM's opinion. That's the DM's ruling. This has been my corner. So, any comments or responses that you have, go ahead and drop them down in the description. I might do another follow-up video to comments in this one, as well as some of the comments in the previous one. Again, shout out to this person for the comment. Come watch this. This is actually a pretty interesting take. And it also shows everyone else what Shane's true intentions are and how he's going to monopolize and monetize the entire thing. He's going to have advertisements in the game before the game is even released. That should say enough.